Before we dive right into the story, please subscribe to this channel for daily stories and also drop a comment for us. Thank you. Rain drummed a stubborn rhythm on the metal roof of the taxi as Amira pressed her forehead to the misted window. A faint scar above her brow, still pink from the recent fall that had triggered her emergency surgery, throbbed every time the driver hit a pothole. She clutched the discharge envelope from Noble Cross Memorial Hospital against her chest like armor. Inside were instructions, pain pills, and a doctor's warning: complete rest for 6 weeks. But rest was a luxury she could no longer afford. The taxi turned onto Rosewood Crescent, a leafy cul-de-sac where expensive cars slept behind manicured hedges. House number 9 appeared, elegant in cream stone, iron gates yawning open like the jaws of some great beast. Lights glowed in every downstairs window. It looked alive, yet in a way that made Amira uneasy, as if the house had changed its allegiance while she was away. "Madam, we are here," the driver announced, killing the engine. She paid him with the last crumpled notes in her purse, thanked him, and stepped into ankle-deep puddles. Her hospital slippers soaked instantly. Cold sliced through the thin cotton dress provided by the ward. She hugged herself and shuffled toward the front steps. No one came out. No warm silhouette of Zion in the doorway. No welcome home banners. She rang the bell twice. Silence. She tried the handle. Locked. Curtain stirred upstairs, then stilled. Something whimpered. The sound was small, but it pierced her chest. She spun toward the gate and gasped. A wicker baby basket lay abandoned on the pavement outside the property line, half shielded by a drooping jacaranda branch. Rain hammered the woven lid. A pink blanket flapped in the wind. Beneath it, her daughter's tiny fist waved like a plea. "Mina." Amira staggered, stitches screaming under the sudden movement. She crossed the short distance and knelt. The baby's cheeks were flushed and clammy. Fever. Tears mingled with raindrops on Amira's face as she scooped Mina into her arms, blanket and all. The infant settled against her mother's heartbeat with a tired sob, lids fluttering. "Who did this to you, my love?" Amira whispered, rocking. Behind her the door clicked. She turned slowly. Cleo stood in the threshold wearing Amira's silk dressing gown, the ivory one with peony embroidery. A wine glass dangled from her fingers. Deep crimson liquid glistened under the porch light. Her eyebrows arched in theatrical sympathy. "Oh, you made it back sooner than expected," Cleo said, voice smooth and low. She leaned on the doorframe, offensive comfort in every line of her body. "You should have called first. Zion said the hospital would keep you longer." Amira's throat dried. "Where's Zion?" "Busy." Cleo sipped. Her lipstick left a perfect oval on the rim. "You look pale. Surgical recovery does that. Shame they did nothing about the fashion sense, they." Amira forced herself to stand, cradling Mina. "Why was my child left outside in the rain?" Cleo's smile turned brittle. The crying was unbearable. A woman needs her peace, especially after certain, strenuous activities. She ran a finger down the front of the robe that did not belong to her. Amira tasted blood where she bit her tongue. "Give me my house keys." "House?" Cleo laughed quietly. "Zion signed the deed into his name months ago. Actually, it is our house now. He told me you agreed it was best." Cold horror spread through Amira faster than the rain. Every shared account, every joint signature, nullified while she was unconscious. Lightning cracked overhead. In the brief flash Cleo's expression hardened. "Bored now. Anyway, you should hurry along before the weather gets worse. Children catch their deaths in storms." She stepped back and closed the door with soft finality, leaving Amira on the steps with the rain. Amira stayed at the blank wood. Something inside her snapped noiselessly, like a thread pulled too tight. She adjusted Mina higher on her shoulder, kissed the damp curls, and trudged back to the gate. There was no space for panic, only forward motion. She turned left and began to walk, shoes squelching. Each footfall an oath she whispered to her daughter. "We have nowhere now," she murmured, "but we have each other. I will not let this be your first memory, Mina. I promise." The gate lights behind her flicked off. She did not look back. Amira reached the end of Rosewood Crescent long after the storm had passed. Dawn bled pale gold through shredded clouds, revealing a city indifferent to her private disaster. She found a bench outside a shuttered bakery, laid Mina across her lap, and counted out loud to calm them both. 5 breaths in. Mina, 5 out. She spoke though the baby, only 2 months old, could not understand. The act steadied her own trembling. After a moment Mina's feverish sobs quieted to shallow breaths. A passing jogger, headphones in, slowed. He frowned at the sight of a woman in hospital garb holding an infant on a public bench. He opened his mouth, then chose silence, jogged on. Concern without intervention. Amira pressed the envelope of discharge papers to her chest again. One sheet slipped free, a bill she had not read. She tucked it away. Not now. Feist, warmth and medicine for Mina. She remembered Zion's words months earlier after her grandmother's funeral. "We are partners," he had said. "Let me handle the dull paperwork so you can heal." She had trusted him. She had believed in shared futures. A taxi rumbled to the curb as if summoned by despair. The driver leaned out. "Madam, you need help." "Yes," Amira whispered. She stood on shaky legs. "Please take us to Crescent Road Inn, the cheap one near the old station." Her voice cracked on cheap, but the driver only nodded. In the back seat the adrenaline faded. Pain stabbed beneath the fresh stitches in her abdomen. She bit her fist to keep from crying out. Mina stared and began a thin wail. Amira rocked her, humming the lullaby her grandmother once sang, a tune about bright rivers and safe crossings. At the inn a gray-haired clerk eyed her hospital attire and the baby. Single night, cash only. She handed over the last of her money. The room key weighed like a verdict in her palm. Inside the tiny room, she peeled off the damp hospital slippers and laid Mina on the single bed. Fever spots glowed on the baby's cheeks. Amira soaked a washcloth in cool water and dabbed gently until the child's breathing eased. Then she collapsed onto the threadbare chair and exhaled the deepest breath of her life. Her phone was still with Zion, confiscated by Cleo maybe. She needed help. Only one person remained who had never asked her to shrink for their comfort, never treated his success like a threat. Jade. They had met in university. 2 women of color in a finance lecture dominated by dismissive voices. Jade had once punched a classmate for mocking Amira's accent, earning a week's suspension and Amira's lifelong loyalty. Amira borrowed the lobby phone. The line rang twice. "Unknown number," Jade answered warily. "It is me." Amira's voice cracked. "I am in trouble." Silence, then Jade's tone sharpened. "Where are you?" "Crescent Road Inn. Room 9. "I am coming." 2 words, ironclad. Amira returned upstairs. She watched Mina sleep, every rise and fall of the tiny chest synchronizing with her own pulse. Somewhere beyond the cracked window glass, morning traffic picked up. Engines growled. Vendors shouted. Life refused to pause. An hour later a rap sounded at the door. Jade burst in without waiting. Her braid swung like a whip as she scanned the room. She wore a power suit, heels abandoned in her rush, makeup half finished. She knelt at the bedside, back straight, assessing Mina with eyes that missed nothing. "Fever," Jade diagnosed. "We get her to Noble Cross." "You too." Amira flinched. "I cannot afford." Jade cut that thought with a gesture. "Your grandmother built that hospital. They will treat her. Move carefully." She slid her arm under Amira's shoulders, mindful of the surgical bandage. "Zion and Cleo took everything," Amira whispered as they shuffled toward the door. "Then we take it back," Jade replied. "And more." Outside, Jade's sleek sedan waited. Amira settled in the back with Mina cradled protectively. The car smelled of leather and the lavender oil Jade preferred. Stability. Resolve. As the city blurred past, Jade spoke from the front seat, voice low but fierce. "No one discards my sister. Not Zion. Not some opportunist in silk. We will remind them who you are." Amira stared out the window. Her reflection looked gutted yet alive, like a field scorched by wildfire but ready to sprout defiant green. "I thought love meant never having to fight for your place," she murmured. Jade met her gaze in the rearview mirror. "Sometimes love means fighting hardest of all." The sedan turned onto a tree-lined avenue. Through the windshield the glass facade of Noble Cross Memorial rose, catching sunlight like a beacon. Home once more, though under a new understanding of what home truly meant. The emergency department doors hissed open and the smell of antiseptic washed over them. Nurses hurried. Monitors beeped. For a heartbeat Amira was back on an operating table, tubing down her throat, surgeons debating whether she would wake at all. She shook off the memory. A triage nurse approached. Jade flashed her business card and spoke with clipped authority. Patient is Mina colored, 2 months old, high fever, possible exposure, no medical assets on file. Mother is recovering postoperative, risk of infection relapse. The nurse tapped on a tablet. Insurance. Patient is direct descendant of Dr. Salma Colored, founder. Process her under the Heritage Code, Jade replied. Eyes widened. The nurse glanced at Amira, recognition dawning. Of course. Right this way. They were ushered into a private pediatric bay. Doctors descended, gentle hands lifting Mina, soft voices soothing. A technician drew tiny vials of blood. A resident held Amira's gaze, explaining each step as if she were a colleague, not a broken woman off the street. Results returned quickly. Viral infection caught early. Fever manageable. Mina would stay overnight on fluids and antibiotics. Relief buckled Amira's knees. She sank into a chair, trembling with exhaustion and gratitude. A hospital administrator in a crisp navy suit arrived, eyes scanning a digital pad. Ms. Colored, welcome back. We offered to handle your grandmother's estate after her passing. The board kept your family suite intact should you need it. Amira blinked. I assumed the suite was closed. Never, the administrator said softly. Dr. Salma's wishes were that it remain available for her lineage in perpetuity. Jade squeezed Amira's shoulder. Take the suite, rest. I will manage the discharge formalities. As Jade spoke, a junior nurse approached. There is a call for Ms. Colored on the ward line. Amira's stomach flipped. She followed the nurse to a wall phone, lifted the receiver. Amira, Zion's voice slithered through the earpiece. Hunted and urgent. I heard you were back. Where are you? Let us talk. Her breath rattled but her spine straightened. Your concern is noted. My daughter and I are safe. A sigh, rehearsed sorrow. Cleo panicked. She did not mean to scare you. Come home. We will fix this. There's no we, Amira said. You relinquished that when you left your child in the rain. Do not be dramatic, Zion hissed. You know I have investors watching. Public scenes hurt us both. Only the guilty fear publicity, she replied. Do not call again. She replaced the handset with shaking fingers, but the shake was not fear anymore. It was the first spark of fury transmuted into purpose. Back in Mina's bay, the baby rested on a heated pad, cheeks calmer, lips parted in sleep. Amira stroked the tiny hand and whispered, You and I will rewrite everything. Sunlight spilled in ribbons across the polished foyer of Noble Cross Memorial as Amira stepped from the pediatric wing into a quieter corridor. Jade walked beside her, heels clicking a measured beat that echoed authority. The walls here were lined with sepia portraits of the hospital's founders. Halfway down the hall, Amira halted before a photograph she had not examined since childhood. It showed her grandmother, Dr. Salma Colored, in a crisp white coat, stethoscope looped around her neck, eyes bright with determination. Beside the portrait was a bronze plaque etched with a dedication. In gratitude to the woman who believed healing should never bow to profit. A strange calm slid through Amira. The woman in the picture seemed to whisper across time, reminding her that blood was not merely something that pulsed within arteries, it was a current of purpose. A voice murmured behind them. Ms. Colored. The hospital administrator, Mr. Adedeji, approached with a leather folio. His spectacles caught a shaft of sunlight, flaring like a signal lamp. The board convened an emergency session. They granted you unlimited access to family records and accounts connected to the Colored Fund. Amira blinked. My grandmother never spoke of a fund. She established it privately, Adedeji said, opening the folio. Its charter states it becomes fully operable when a closest living descendant reaches a point of unavoidable need. Her wording, not mine. Jade's eyebrows lifted. Unavoidable need sounds apartment. Adedeji slid a document across a side table. To activate it you need only sign. The capital will cover your daughter's care and more. Amira traced the edge of the paper. Ink, paper, lineage, simple components that suddenly formed a bridge out of ruin. Please prepare everything, she said, voice steady. Adedeji bowed slightly. There's also a letter. It was sealed for you alone. He produced a cream envelope, edges browned by years. Amira accepted the envelope with both hands, heart rattling. Thank you. Jade guided her into a small consultation room, closed the door, and leaned against it like a god. Amira sat, broke the wax seal, and unfolded a single sheet. My dearest granddaughter, if this letter reaches you, it means life has bruised you badly enough to need my voice again. Take courage. You carry a lion's heart even when the world tries to convince you it is only an apologetic mouse. Wealth is not a fortress. It is a tool. Use what I built to protect those left in the cold. Build doors where others erect gates. Remember, legacy is love in durable form. Salma. Tears blurred the final line. Jade crossed the room and rested a hand on Amira's shoulder. Your grandmother just wrote the next chapter for you, Jade said softly. Amira inhaled, the breath tasting of antiseptic and possibility. Then let her start writing it. They spent the next hours with Adidiji, combing through files. The colored fund's reserves were considerable, nurtured by decades of prudent investment. Jade, who thrived on numbers the way some thrived on music, outlined a rescue plan, emergency housing, legal counsel, discreet public relations support. Amira listened, nodding, absorbing, but her mind orbited Mina. Every decision narrowed into one question. Does it secure my child's tomorrow? When Mina's attending pediatric and entered to report the fever had broken and the baby slept peacefully, Amira's spine finally unlocked. Relief flooded her limbs. She deigned a small smile at Jade. First victory. First of many, Jade replied. Late that afternoon they walked to the top floor, where the colored family suite overlooked the city. The living area was warm with amber lamps and high windows. Jade opened balcony doors and fresh air rushed in, sweeping away the staleness of grief and betrayal. Amira set her bag on a sofa, then stood on the threshold of a life she had not imagined waking to. I left that house with nothing, she said quietly. Jade folded her arms. Now you have a hospital floor, a fund, and a story the media will soon chase. Deciding how to use that spotlight is your next move. Amira nodded, gaze drifting over the skyline where storm clouds parted around ragged edges of sunset. I will not use it to shame Zion. That path ends small. What path ends big? One that widens for others. Women who walk out of doors meant to keep them powerless. Her eyes sharpened. I want to build a shelter. A place better than any I needed last night. Jade's answering grin was fierce. We start tomorrow. Night settled, jeweled with city lights. Amira watched her daughter sleep in a bassinet near the window, chest rising in slow, certain rhythm. She placed her grandmother's letter beside the infant and whispered, Your great-grandmother just opened every door we will need. Outside, somewhere beyond the hospital walls, Zion paced in a condo that felt suddenly small. He stared at his phone, scrolling through a news bite. Granddaughter of hospital founder returns, heir to sizable philanthropic fund. The accompanying photo caught her profile through a glass elevator. Eyes steady, child in arms. The headline crushed him with a weight he could not name. He hurled the phone across the room, and it shattered against imported stone. Cleo emerged from the bedroom, silk robe cinched at the waist. Investors keep calling. They want reassurance about the merger. Tell me everything is under control. Zion pressed trembling fingers to his temple. Everything is control, he muttered. Words tangled. Cleo eyed the smashed phone, unconvinced. They stood in silence, house lights dim, a chill settling despite the marble and chrome. For the first time, envy pricked Cleo's practiced composure. She had taken Amira's slippers and robe, yet none of it made her feel untouchable. Across the city, the woman they discarded was rising on foundations built of legacy. Cleo walked to the barcat, poured a stiff drink, and studied Zion's reflection in the mirror above the decanters. His shoulders drooped. Weakness. A crack spidered through her ambition. She would not fall with him if the ground gave way. On the balcony of the hospital suite, Amira cradled a cup of ginger tea, dawn flickering on the horizon. Wind tugged her hair. She closed her eyes and listened to the city's heartbeat. Somewhere inside that heartbeat, her own rhythm found a steadier cadence. Nowhere but forward had been last night's mantra. Tonight, a new refrain settled in her chest. Build doors, then hold them open. Morning press at Noble Cross began with a low hum. Reporters clustered near the main entrance hoping for a statement. News of Dr. Salma Khalid's activating a dormant fund had leaked overnight, thanks to a junior board member eager for quick fame. By 8 a.m., Vans from 3 television networks idled at the curb. Amira stood before a mirror in the suite bedroom, adjusting a borrowed blazer. Jade fussed with the collar, using practiced fingers to brush imaginary lint. "You look like leadership," Jade pronounced. "I feel like an imposter who slept 4 hours," Amira murmured, but a smile tugged at her lips. "You feel tired, not false. There's a difference." Jade clipped a tiny sun-shaped pin, a gift from their graduation day, onto Amira's lapel. "Wear this so I can spot you in a sea of flashing cameras." A nurse arrived with Mina, who gurgled, cheeks now a healthy brown rose. The nurse deposited the infant into Amira's arms. All vitals normal. Fever resolved. Amira pressed a kiss to her daughter's forehead. "I have one duty before all others," she whispered. Downstairs, Jade fielded reporters like a seasoned diplomat. She delivered a concise statement. Amira would speak briefly. No personal questions about her relationship with Zion. Focus on the charitable revival. Flashes burst as Amira approached the podium near the hospital fountain. She centered herself on the memory of her grandmother's voice telling bedtime stories about brave girls who saved villages without swords. She cleared her throat. "My name is Amira Colored," she began, steady and clear. "Yesterday my infant daughter and I arrived at this hospital with little more than a hope for safety. Today I stand on my grandmother's ground, grateful that her vision still has room for us, and for many who will come after." She outlined plans to establish a transitional shelter named Mina's Haven. She spoke of mothers fleeing violence, children needing medical care, families grappling with betrayal and sudden homelessness. Her words were plain, but something radiant threaded through them, a conviction that invited listeners to lean closer. Cameras rolled, pens scratched. One reporter dared. "Miss Colored, can you comment on rumors your fiancé denied you entry to your home?" Amira met the woman's eyes. "I will comment on this. Any door that closes on a vulnerable person is an opportunity for the rest of us to build a better one. Mina's Haven is that better door." The crowd murmured, approval rippling. Live feeds carried her answer across social platforms. Within an hour donations trickled, then surged. Former patients of Noble Cross wrote testimonials. A retired teacher offered to volunteer as tutor. A celebrity chef pledged to stock the shelter's pantry. Hope spread like bright dye in clear water. Across the city, Zion watched the broadcast from his office tower. Investors crowded a video call, faces tiled in judgment. One spoke first. "This morning's headlines changed our projections. Partnering with colored charities would have elevated your merger proposal. The optics now look unfortunate." Zion swallowed. "We can still spin this. The story will cycle out." Another investor interjected. "Social traction for Mina's Haven has doubled in 2 hours. That is not a cycle, that is a movement. Your name trends next to accusations of abandonment." Sleet pooled in Zion's stomach. "I can issue a statement." "Do that," an investor said, tone like steel. "But until confidence returns, our capital remains parked." The call ended. Glass walls reflected his pallor. Cleo swept into the office, tablet in hand. "Metric charts are falling," she reported. "Your grasp of the obvious astounds," Zion snapped. Cleo's lips thinned, but her voice stayed smooth. "Blame will not fix this." "Fix it then." "I have a suggestion. Marry me quickly. Publicly donating to that shelter in our marital name could shift the narrative." Zion stared. Panic and calculation warred behind his eyes. "You think she will accept my money?" "She may refuse, but the offer itself signals humility. People forgive humility." He bristled, yet desperation dulled pride. "Draft a pledge announcement." Cleo nodded, pivoting toward the door, concealed relief softening her shoulders. If she could reframe them as philanthropists, perhaps the ground would steady again. Back at Noble Cross, Amira sat with hospital architects in a glass conference room, blueprints splayed across the table. Jade streamed in on video from a law office downtown, juggling legal filings for the shelter's nonprofit status. A junior architect traced a pencil over the blueprint. "We can convert the vacant child development wing near the river. 70 rooms, each with ensuite baths." Amira listened, imagining walls painted warm earth, playground laughter echoing. She had never built anything other than spreadsheets. Yet here, decisions felt tangible, like bricks arranged by intention. During a break, she wandered the hallway and found herself outside the neonatal intensive care unit. Through the window, tiny incubators glowed under gentle lamps. Miniature fists opened and closed in dreams. She pressed a hand to the glass, emotion rising sharp in her throat. A nurse approached quietly. "Your grandmother stood here often," she said. "She used to say she listened for courage in the softest cries." Amira smiled faintly. "Thank you for telling me. Courage runs in families," the nurse added before walking on. Late afternoon, Jade strode into the conference room waving a tablet. Charity registry approved. Non-profit status granted in record time. Applause spread among the team. Amira felt the moment settle in her bones with gratifying weight. Soon after, her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She answered, expecting a donor inquiry. Zion's voice. "I want to contribute $1 million to Mina's Haven." Amira inhaled slowly. "Why?" "Because I believe in your mission," he said quickly. Underneath, she heard the strain of rehearsed sincerity. "Or because your investors believe in reputational salvage." A pause. "Does motive matter if the money helps women and children?" "It matters to me," Amira said. "Integrity is the shelter's foundation. We cannot pour poison into the mix and expect strong walls. If you refuse the money, people might think you care more about pride than those you claim to help," Zion warned. Amira almost laughed. He still fought with the only weapon he trusted, manipulation dressed as concern. "I will let the public decide whose pride is louder," she said. "Keep your $1 million." She hung up. A hush blanketed the room. Jade raised an eyebrow in question. Amira exhaled. "We build without his money." Jade grinned. "We build with ours." That night, social feeds exploded. Screenshots of Zion's failed pledge leaked, paired with Amira's refusal. Hashtags bloomed. #doors not gates. #lionhearted. The consensus swung hard. Admiration for the woman who would not bow to conscience for comfort. Cleo scrolled the feed beside Zion on the penthouse couch. "You said she would accept." Zion buried his face in his hands. "She should have." Cleo's gaze drifted over the city lights. She thought of that silk robe, how it felt like victory at first and now felt like borrowed skin. She rose, went to the bedroom, and closed the door with a decisive click. The following morning, Amira's legal counsel, secured by Jade, filed injunctions, asset freeze requests on the joint accounts Zion had emptied, petitions to reclaim property transferred under dubious consent. Courts moved slowly, but the first freeze order landed faster than expected. Zion's personal credit line locked. Payroll for his startup failed to process. Staff flooded his inbox with frantic emails. Each electronic ping felt like a hammer. Each cold reply he attempted felt less convincing. The empire he once sculpted from charm and borrowed brilliance began to list, seams groaning. At Noble Cross, architects taped early sketches on the conference room wall. Pastel renderings showed communal gardens, study alcoves, a clinic wing. Volunteers streamed in offering services, counselors, teachers, yoga instructors, chefs. Mina's Haven breathed before bricks were laid. Amira stood before the sketches, Mina dozing in a sling at her chest. Voices buzzed around her, but she heard her grandmother again. "Wealth is a tool. Use it to protect." Jade joined her, holding takeout coffee. "Phase 1 budget is covered," she reported. "We'll launch fundraising for Phase 2 tomorrow." "Tomorrow," Amira repeated, then kissed the sleeping curls by her heart. "A good word. It means we made it through today." Morning light slanted across the colored suite when Amira woke to the soft thuds of Mina's kicks against a ribcage. She eased the baby from the sling and laid her on the bed, then padded barefoot to the balcony. The city shimmered beneath a pale peach sky, traffic just beginning to hum along the expressway. She drew her grandmother's letter from her blazer pocket, folded and unfolded the paper until the creases felt like braille. Each sentence still pulsed with quiet instruction. "Build doors. Hold them open. Do not let pain reduce the size of your generosity." Downstairs the lobby buzzed. Families arrived for visiting hours. An aroma of fresh akara drifted from the cafe. Amira dressed quickly in high-waisted trousers and a linen blouse, then joined Jade in the conference room where contractors waited with cost estimates. An architect pointed at the blueprint. "We need a symbol in the entrance courtyard, something children can circle on their first day, something mothers can rest upon. A sculpture." Amira's gaze flicked to Mina asleep in her carrier. A woman shielding a child, she said. A lioness. My grandmother always called me her little lion. Jade nodded. A single bronze form, durable under harmattan dust. We can commission a local sculptor. Discussion turned to timelines, permits, and workforce hiring from nearby low-income neighborhoods, so the project itself seeded jobs. Amira listened, but a thread of her attention remained snagged on the letter's final line. Legacy is love in durable form. Near noon the hospital chaplain visited. A gentle man with smile lines around curious eyes. He carried a slim package wrapped in brown paper. Dr. Salma left this in the chapel safe with instructions to deliver it when her grandchild began a new work in her name. Amira peeled the paper away, revealing an antique brass key attached to a thin chain. The chaplain bowed. She once said a real key can open more than one door if the hand behind it is brave. Amira slipped the key around her neck where it rested above her heartbeat. That afternoon Mina's haven received its first unexpected guest. A woman in a threadbare blazer approached the conference room, carrying a battered manila folder. Security tried to steer her to reception, but Amira noticed her anxious glances and waved her in. My name is Mariam, the woman whispered. I am a social worker for Hamilton Refuge. We have 50 occupants and the landlord just sold the building. We must move in 3 weeks. Amira invited her to sit. Jade fetched water. Mariam opened the folder. Photos of cramped dormitories, handwritten stories of women fleeing forced marriages, teenage mothers studying for exams in hallways because classrooms were full. Our council applications stall every year, Mariam said, voice cracking. When I read that Mina's haven would hold space for the displaced, I prayed you might listen sooner rather than later. Amira leafed through the pages. The faces stared back with cautious hope, reminding her of the girl she used to tutor in secondary school nights, after Zion bragged about networking dinners. A staring of purpose steadied her breath. 3 weeks is tight, Jade murmured. Amira nodded. Tell your residents to hold on. Mina's haven will be ready. Mariam's shoulders sagged with relieved disbelief. Tears slid down her cheeks. She pressed both hands to her heart, then left with a promise of follow-up details. Jade exhaled. You just guaranteed we will finish phase 1 in 20 days. 20 days, Amira repeated. Then we hold the door open. While Amira drafted an accelerated schedule with contractors, Zion wrestled with a different countdown. His chief financial officer emailed a resignation. A brand partnership agency demanded immediate fees retain. A viral video of Mina's haven construction footage, scored with soft piano and Amira's speech, hit 1 million views by sunset. Inside Zion's condo, Cleo flitted between packing suitcases and scrolling news coverage. People adore her refusal, she muttered. You underestimated what a clean narrative does for public sympathy. Zion ignored her, absorbed by a new headache, a subpoena regarding property transfers. His lawyer's text glared from the cracked screen of his replacement phone. Cleo zipped her bag. I will stay at the Karali Hotel while this storm passes. You said we should marry, Zion snapped. That proposal relied on you having influence. Investors listen to her now. He lunged, gripping her wrist. Do not walk away. I made you. She peeled his fingers off calmly. You made a spectacle. I prefer winners. She swung the bag over her shoulder and left. The front door clicked, an ordinary sound that somehow echoed like a verdict. Across town, Amira tucked Mina into her bassinet in the pediatric bay for final night observations. The baby's eyelids fluttered, tiny lashes casting shadows like brushstrokes. A nurse adjusted the four and smiled at Amira. She will be cleared for discharge tomorrow. Amira smoothed the blanket. Thank you. In the hallway, Jade caught up, phone glowing with an alert. An anonymous donor wired $200,000 to the shelter account. Amira tilted her head. Anonymous. Tracing the payment route shows an account under the name Silver Pride Foundation, registered in an offshore jurisdiction. No immediate connections. Amira considered. We accept but verify. Integrity above haste. Jade agreed, dispatching the legal team to audit the funds. Yet a thought lingered in both their minds. Desperation sometimes hides behind generosity. They would remain vigilant. That night Amira dreamt of rivers. She stood on a wooden bridge watching lion cubs drink from the water while storm clouds built at her back. One cub turned, eyes luminous, and spoke with her grandmother's voice. Remember to bend low enough for children to climb on your shoulders. She woke before dawn, heart thrumming. The brass key warmed against her skin. Stepping onto the balcony, she saw the first scaffolding poles rising at the riverside lot earmarked for Mina's haven. Construction had begun before sunrise under floodlights, workers moving with practiced urgency. Hope looked like steel and sweat and the clang of hammers. When the sun finally cracked the horizon, she raised her phone and recorded a short video. "Good morning," she said to the camera. "Day 1 of building Mina's haven. By this river we prove that discarded stones can be cornerstones. Follow our progress. Join our progress. And if someone in your life has shown you a closed gate, show them the new door we are making together." She posted the clip. Within minutes the view count spun upward. Meanwhile Zion arrived at his office to find security badges deactivated and a polite young guard denying entry. The board had voted him out pending investigation into misuse of company resources. He barked threats, but the guard remained stone. Zion walked out, tie askew, sweat prickling. He drove aimlessly until he reached the Riverside district. Orange vests dotted the future site of Mina's haven. Cameras filmed volunteers handing out bottled water. Children from nearby schools painting colorful slogans on plywood barriers. Zion parked across the street, engine idling. He watched Amira greet each worker. Sleeves rolled, hard hat slightly crooked. She laughed when a gust of wind plastered blueprints to her face, then bent to show a small boy how to hold a paintbrush. The scene glowed with authenticity, everything he once feigned. Zion slumped low in the seat, shame a physical weight. For a single fractured second he considered stepping out, offering an apology he barely knew how to form. Instead he reversed from the curb and drove away, radio off so he could not escape the roar of his own pulse. Toward evening a courier delivered a small parcel to the colored suite. Amira opened it on the conference table. Inside lay a wooden toy lion, sanded smooth, the word tomorrow carved along the belly. A simple note read, "I cannot change yesterday. Let me help you build tomorrow. Z." Jade's brow knitted. Emotional bribery. Amira ran her thumb over the carved letters. Maybe remorse. Does it shift our course? Amira placed the lion beside the blueprint. Our course includes forgiveness, but not foolishness. He can volunteer under supervision like anyone else. The work itself will decide his sincerity. Jade grinned, admiration glinting. Very well. Applications open at dawn. They closed the evening by finalizing the first resident intake list for Hamilton Refuge. 20 mothers, 29 children, 2 elderly grandmothers. Rooms would be ready in 19 days if the contractors held pace. Before bed Amira set the toy lion on Mina's bedside table. The baby cooed in her sleep, fingers uncurling as though reaching for the figurine. Amira whispered, "Tomorrow is yours, little one. Tomorrow, and every day after." Thunderheads rolled in from the Atlantic 2 mornings later, but the air around Mina's haven vibrated with a different kind of electricity. A professional film crew hired by a philanthropic media house arrived to document the shelter's accelerated build. Drones rose, capturing sweeping shots of cranes lifting roof trusses while volunteers lined up to sort donated supplies. Amira strode on site in sturdy boots, clipboard in hand, brass key glinting at her throat. She greeted reporters with calm confidence, directing them toward spokespeople among the social work teams, so the spotlight widened beyond her own narrative. Inside the partially framed main hall, she paused to help a mason adjust support beams. The man thanked her, calling her Sister Lion. The nickname spread among workers, lifting morale even as the sky darkened. Elsewhere Zion sat in a muted law office, flanked by attorneys. Court officials outlined the asset freeze and the pending fraud inquiry. Each allegation felt like a stone dropping into a deep well. He signed acknowledgement forms with a numb hand, pen strokes jagged. Exiting the building, he found a line of reporters. Questions peppered the air. Is it true you left your fiancé and newborn outside your home? Did you attempt to buy back public favor with a false donation? He pushed through, face burning. Rain began to fall, plastering his hair to his forehead. He drove to the Corrali Hotel and discovered Cleo had checked out. The concierge handed him a sealed envelope. Inside, Cleo's neat handwriting, "I choose survival. Good luck." No signature. Rain intensified, drumming on the lobby skylight. Zion walked outside and let the downpour soak his suit, no destination forming in his head. In the street, a billboard flickered to life. A promo for Mina's Haven featuring Amira's speech atop gentle piano chords. Her eyes shone in the glare of neon. He raised his face to the rain, mouth twisting in bitter laughter. The world had chosen its heroine, and it was not him. At the build site, volunteers erected canopies to shield lumber from the storm. Jade coordinated via walkie-talkie from a makeshift office trailer, tracking deliveries and social media engagement. #Lionhearted trended in 8 countries. Donation portals pinged faster than the accounting software could batch receipts. Mid-afternoon, a commotion erupted near the security gate. Zion, soaked, disheveled, approached holding a tool belt. Guards blocked him. He asked to speak with Amira. Word reached her on the 2nd floor where she inspected drywall. She considered, then descended the scaffolding and met him beneath the gate awning. Rainwater dripped from his eyelashes. He extended the belt. "I want to help." Gasps fluttered among onlookers. Cameras pointed. Amira kept her voice low. "We accept volunteers who follow the rules. No special treatment, no media stunts. I will do any task. Cleaning, lifting rubble." She studied him, searching for sincerity past fatigue. "Then start in the supply tent. Sort diapers and blankets. Speak to Supervisor Mariam. She will log your hours." Relief sagged his shoulders. He turned toward the tent, ignoring murmured disbelief from volunteers who recognized him. Jade joined Amira. "Generous." "Necessary," Amira replied. "Redemption is a door too." The storm broke by sunset. Under vapor lamps, Zion stacked boxes, sweat mixing with rain. Mariam watched, expression unreadable. When he fumbled a size chart for infant clothing, she corrected him gently. Night brought another surge of good news. A global furniture chain pledged beds and desks for every room. A tech company offered laptops. The city council fast-tracked approval for a footbridge connecting the shelter to a nearby public park. Across the city, Zion returned to an empty condo, muscles aching. He showered and stared in the mirror. For once he did not rehearse a charismatic grin. He saw the hollowness behind his eyes and understood charm alone could not fill it. He opened his laptop and drafted an email to Mina's Haven board. "Today I sorted supplies. Tomorrow I will shovel gravel. I do not deserve forgiveness yet, but I am willing to work until my blisters speak louder than my past mistakes." He hit send, then closed the laptop with trembling fingers. Morning of day 5. Cleo surfaced in a glossy magazine interview blaming Zion entirely for the abandoned baby scandal. She painted herself as an unwitting pawn who tried to rescue Amira from an abusive relationship. The article included staged photos of Cleo donating designer clothes to a charity unrelated to Mina's Haven. Social media roared. Fact-checkers unearthed Cleo's eviction of a tenant in her rental property last year. Sympathy evaporated. Brands sponsoring Cleo's influencer work suspended contracts. At the build site, someone taped a magazine cover to a coffee urn in the break area. Volunteers laughed, then returned to hammering. Progress refused distraction. Day 6, structural inspectors approved the final steel beam, and workers cheered. Zion arrived in scuffed boots, bandaged palm, and resumed hauling gravel. Nobody offered praise, but nobody turned him away. That evening, Amira gathered the crew by the riverbank. Lanterns flickered as twilight deepened. She spoke without a microphone, yet every ear caught her words. "We are halfway to raising walls, but more than halfway to raising spirits. Each nail announces that safety is possible. Each bucket of cement says tomorrow can start tonight. Thank you." Applause rippled outward. Someone began to sing, a low melodious hum that swelled as others joined. The river carried the sound through the warm air. Zion stood at the edge, hands dusty, listening. The song wrapped around him like a question. What will you build with the rest of your days? In the colored suite, Amira placed a fresh sheet of paper beside her grandmother's letter and began writing a new message addressed to Mina. Lines poured out, telling the child how bravery is sometimes quiet, how love can look like architecture, how doors matter because they let light inside. She sealed the letter and tucked it with salmas, deciding Mina would open them when she turned 18. By then she hoped the shelter would have multiplied, maybe franchised across the continent, each branch named for another child once caught in the rain. Thunder rumbled distantly, promising more storms. Amira smiled at the sound. A builder learns to work between bolts of lightning, trusting that foundations laid in rain hold firm under dawn. Floodlights crowned the riverside site of Favouryte as finishing crews swarmed across scaffolds like ants preparing for sunrise. 2 weeks of near-sleepless nights had transformed an empty lot into a half-finished miracle. Mina's haven already stood 3 stories tall, its concrete bones honeycombed with fresh wiring, copper pipes, and the hopeful chatter of tradespeople who refused overtime pay because the cause feels bigger than a paycheck. Amira strode down the gravel drive in a hard hat painted gold by the children from Hamilton Refuge. The brass key to her grandmother's fund bounced at her collarbone, a tiny metronome measuring how far purpose could march in 16 days. Inside the main hall, now roofed, lit, and buzzing with paint rollers, Miriam held a clipboard thicker than her arm. "Intake appointments begin at 9 sharp tomorrow," she said, eyes wide at the sheer volume. "We will process 20 families before lunch." Amira grinned. "If we can build walls in record time, we can stack paperwork just as quickly." A clatter erupted behind them. Zion, dust-coated and breathless, skidded to a halt after dropping a crate of ceramic sink basins. Volunteers sprinted to help. The basins were intact, but he winced at the crash echoing through raw concrete. Amira's gaze found him. He murmured a contrite sorry, wiped mud from his brow, and returned to the supply line without waiting for absolution. Miriam raised an eyebrow. "He still shows up every dawn." "And we still log his hours like anyone else," Amira replied. Jade entered waving her tablet. "Press conference in 1 hour. The mayor just confirmed attendance. Our social streams are insane. 4 million views on yesterday's time-lapse, and journalists are calling Mina's Haven the fastest full-scale shelter build in the region's history." Amira's stomach fluttered. Public speaking still startled her. "We are not finished yet." "But perception is currency," Jade said. "If we leverage this spotlight, fundraising for Phase 2, the adult education wing, will collapse every barrier." The provisional auditorium was simply a widened corridor under open rafters. Folding chairs faced a makeshift dais, reclaimed wood podium, backdrop of plywood painted sky blue by local art students. Children affixed paper sunflowers to base studs. Their laughter drifted down the hall, dissolving nerves in real time. By noon the corridor thrummed with city officials, donors, reporters balancing cameras on stacked paint cans, and Hamilton Refuge mothers who clutched toddlers with one arm and hope with the other. Amira stepped to the podium, brass key glinting. Flashbulbs burst like fireworks. She began softly. 3 weeks ago, my daughter and I stood outside a locked gate. When that door slammed shut, strangers opened their own. Hospital staff, volunteers, each of you. Mina's Haven exists because humanity's default setting is generosity." She recounted the sleepless nights, the scaffold jokes, the way a welder named Kimi hummed lullabies to keep pace with her torch. She thanked the anonymous upholstery shop that stitched 50 reading nook cushions at cost. She paused on Zion, acknowledging every volunteer who traded comfort for sweat and humility. Zion's lips parted in shock. He lowered his head beneath the flicker of camera flashes. Then she issued the call. "We finished these walls in 4 more dawns. When the first mother arrives carrying nothing but her child and a heartbeat, I want her to find more than a shelter. I want her to find a promise." Standing ovation. Reporters shouted questions. "Miss Colored, what message do you have for women who still stand outside gates tonight?" Amira didn't hesitate. "Your worth is not written on a deed, a wedding band, or anyone's opinion. Come. This door was measured for you." The mayor pledged city grants. A telecom CEO in the audience donated bandwidth for a resident digital skills lab. Online viewers crashed the website with microdonations. When the crowd dispersed, Amira retreated to the half-frame courtyard. She inhaled lumber dust and river wind, the 2 cents twining into something that smelled like commencement. Jade joined her, eyes bright. "We just cleared the entire education wing budget." Above them, carpenters hammered the final trusses in place, and each clang sounded like an iron-syllable spelling tomorrow. 2 days later midnight draped the construction site in velvet darkness. Security lights haloed the buildings, but most workers had gone home. Amira remained, pacing the main hall while Mina slept in a portable crib. Blueprints and punch lists lay sprawled at her feet. Every column had a green checkmark except one, the Bronze Sculpture Commission. The foundry called earlier. Kill malfunction, 10-day delay. Opening day was 36 hours away. She pinched her eyes. The entrance needs that statue. It tells the story before words do. Jade replied via speakerphone from her low office, voice raspy with fatigue. We can unveil everything else and save the sculpture for a later ceremony. Amira exhaled. Compromise stung, but practicality mattered. Email the foundry. Finish when safe. We focus on move-in. She hung up and looked to Mina, tiny chest rising. A shuffle of footsteps startled her. Zion emerged from the side corridor holding a small wooden crate. I thought everyone left, Amira said cautiously. I saw the kill email on the team thread, he muttered. I brought something. He opened the crate. Inside lay a raw limestone block, waist-high, veined with amber. I carved once in university. Never finished a piece. But limestone is forgiving. He swallowed. Let me try tonight. If it fails, you lose nothing. Amira studied him, unshaven, eyes rimmed red, but something earnest flickered there. The statue depicts a woman shielding a child, reaching toward light. I remember. He waited, breathing shallow. Finally she nodded. Tools are in the main shed. Work outside so dust stays clay. She hefted the sleeping Mina and turned away. And Zion, faith is not charity. Ain't it? He dipped his head. Yes. At 2 a.m. Amira returned, unable to sleep. Under floodlights Zion chipped at the stone with surprising grace, sweat carving dark rivers down his arms. Shards littered the torp. Emerging lines hinted at a crouched female figure, cloak unfurled like wings. He paused when Amira approached. Silence draped them, broken only by river murmurs. She set a thermos of ginger tea beside him. You drank this after every late-night study session back then, she said quietly. He managed a sad smile. I also talked about changing the world back then. Ambition ate the pledge. Amira considered the half-shaped stone. Ambition is only dangerous when it forgets companions. Hours passed. She dozed in a folding chair. Mina curled against her chest. Dawn painted the horizon bruised orange. Hammers and distant signaled crews arriving for final inspections. Zion exhaled, stepped back from the block. The sculpture, though unfinished, captured motion. A woman kneeling, left arm curved protectively around a swaddled infant, right hand lifting, fingers not grasping light but offering it. He faced Amira, eyes wet. You deserve better than this rough draft, but time. She shook her head. It is perfect because it is honest. She reached out and traced the limestone hands upward sweep, and it will be finished by collective palms. Opening day visitors can sand edges, polish surfaces. The sculpture will grow under many fingerprints. Zion's shoulders trembled. I left our daughter in the rain. Amira's voice remained steady, and I carried her through the storm. She pulled a folded document from her back pocket, a finalized property restitution agreement prepared by Jade. Sign, and the house returns to Mina's haven as transitional apartments. Then your redemption continues in service, not speeches. His pen barely scratched the paper. Tears blurred the ink. Thank you for the chance. Amira tucked the agreement away. Legal consequences still stand, but consequences can coexist with purpose. Later that morning, Hamilton refuge families arrived in 2 rented buses. Children tumbled down the steps, eyes saucer-wide at colorful murals volunteers had finished at dawn. Mariam guided them through the hallways while media captured every gasp of delight. In the courtyard, the unfinished statue stood shrouded in linen. Amira gathered residents around. We will complete this sculpture together, she announced, handing out sheets of fine sandpaper. Mothers, teenagers, Zion, city officials, and wide-eyed toddlers lined up. One by one they stroked sandstone until edges softened under communal labor. Mina, strapped to Amira's chest, babbled as if directing the orchestra of hands. By afternoon, every room hummed with first-day rituals, bunk beds claimed, laughter echoing down freshly painted corridors, someone strumming a guitar near the mezzanine. Jade delivered orientation packets. Social workers scheduled trauma counseling. Local chefs unpacked donated produce in the industrial kitchen. Amira drifted through it all like a conductor, ensuring each section stayed in harmony. At dusk she climbed a rooftop terrace, seeking a moment alone. The river reflected bronze and violet, city lights flickering on. Footsteps approached. Zion again. I'm leaving town tomorrow, he said softly. Voluntarily meeting investigators upstate. She nodded. Facing the music matters. He set a small plush lion on a ledge, twin to the wooden one. Mina should choose which lion she keeps, wooden or soft. Or both, Amira said. She did not thank him. She merely acknowledged the gesture with a subtle dip of her chin. He exhaled, searching her face for anything resembling former intimacy. Instead he found acceptance edged with unavoidable distance. He bowed his head, turned, and descended the stairs. Amira watched until his silhouette merged with the deck, then breathed out a decade's worth of confusion. She whispered to the sleeping city, "We do not look back, baby. Not anymore." As if in reply, Mina stirred against her chest and sighed, a soft, content sound that felt like affirmation carved from air. Grand opening day dawned crisp and bright. Ribbons of morning smoke from street vendor grills curled over the river as crowds gathered outside Mina's haven's completed facade. A banner stretched across the entrance, "Strength as a doorway, walk through." Local musicians set up marimbas and djembes. School choirs rehearsed beneath portable pavilions. Reporters arranged tripods, their chatter blending with the metallic clang of last-minute ladderwork. The limestone sculpture, now burnished satin smooth by hundreds of hands, occupied a small plinth beside the main steps. Its protective cloak had been removed at sunrise, revealing text engraved along the base. "Tomorrow belongs to the lion-hearted." Amira, dressed in a deep green jumpsuit that mirrored river reeds, attached a silver brooch shaped like the key she wore, then lifted Mina, now rosy-cheeked and curious, into a woven wrap at her back. Jade appeared, legal pads replaced by a single envelope. Final inspection passed. Fire Marshal grinned wider than I have ever seen. "Congratulations," Chairwoman colored. Amira laughed. "Chairwoman sounds like someone older and wiser. I will answer to Mother in progress." They worked down a corridor lined with framed portraits, survivors who had already signed tenancy agreements. Under each photo hung a plaque engraved with the person's chosen affirmation. Statements like "I am still standing," "Hope did not drown," "I rewrite endings." At 10 a.m. the mayor stepped to the podium. 2 months ago this ground was empty. Today it is a fortress of compassion built by collective will. He cut a ribbon strung between pillars. Children released paper lanterns shaped like lion cubs. They floated upward in thermals, tiny flames flickering like beating hearts. Amira followed, microphone in hand. She could see Zion at the back of the crowd, wrists wrapped in gauze where stone dust had chafed skin raw. Next to him, Cleo stood alone. Piaox had collapsed. She came without entourage. She wore a plain dress, no jewelry, eyes swollen from newly public eviction notices. Amira addressed everyone anyway. For anyone who has ever approached a door and feared it would stay closed, Mina's haven is proof that closed gates can become welcome mats when we build together. She thanked donors, then pivoted. But gratitude is not the end of the story. A shelter does not erase harm. It creates breathing space so healing can begin. Our next phase is education, computer labs, literacy night classes, job placement services. To sustain those programs we need monthly commitments, not single applause line pledges. QR codes flashed on a screen. Smartphones rose. Email alerts pinged on Jade's tablet. Subscriptions flooded in. Then came the sculpture unveiling. Amira invited Zion, Cleo, Mariam, and 2 Hamilton Refuge children to join her. Cameras clicked wildly, tabloids hungry for drama, but Amira kept the moment graceful. Together they circled the plinth, each placing a palm on the cool stone, then stepped back. Applause thundered. A toddler shouted, "Lion Lady!" The crowd laughed. Amira bowed slightly to the child. Reporters swarmed. "Miss Colored, you allowed your ex-fiancé and his associate to share the stage. Why?" "Because healing is a group project," she answered. "Even those who hurt us become part of the mosaic when they choose accountability." Cleo's mascara-marked cheeks quivered. She whispered thank you and slipped into the throng of volunteers now herding guests toward buffet lines. Zion remained, waiting until microphones drifted elsewhere. He handed Amira a folded document, proof of his first restitution payment to the joint estate. It was insignificant next to her fund, but meaningful nonetheless. "I am starting over in a counseling program for men learning empathy," he said. "I will write Mina when I have something worthy to say." Amira nodded, no ransom remaining. "Earn your peace." The afternoon unraveled into joyous chaos. Children squealed on brand new swings, A film crew captured Hamilton mothers decorating dorm doors with fabric scraps. Volunteers painted intricate mandalas on the floor of the meditation room. In the industrial kitchen, Ghanaian grandmothers taught teenagers to season jollof with respect or not at all, laughter singing above sizzling pots. At dusk, the crowd gathered in the courtyard for the final ceremony, the naming stone. A rectangular slab of polished basalt waited atop a low altar, blank and gleaming. Participants were invited to etch one word representing what Mina's haven meant to them. Jewel-tipped styluses were passed along. Sparks flew as each person scratched letters into the basalt. Safe. Courage. Rebirth. Ubuntu. When it was Amira's turn, she wrote light. Then she guided Mina's tiny hand to form a looping L, helping the child's fingernail score the surface. Gasps and smiles rippled outward. When every voice had carved a word, the basalt surface shimmered with a constellation of intentions. Jade unveiled an inlaid gold title near the top. Mariam led a call-and-response chant. The courtyard pulsed like a heartbeat, each shouted word launching skyward into twilight. Later, lanterns floated across the river, carrying wishes written by the shelter's first residents. Amira watched flames bob on gentle waves. Jade joined her, handing over a warm mug of hibiscus tea. We hit 22,000 words, Jade teased, referencing the storytelling challenge that started it all. Amira laughed, eyes shining. Seems minimalist now that I know how many doors a single sentence can build. She lifted Mina high so the child could marvel at lanterns receding into darkness. Strength is not how loud you shout, she murmured, recalling her grandmother's wisdom. It is how deeply you protect. On the riverbank, Zion sat beside Cleo in silence. They were no longer lovers or accomplices. They were simply two witnesses learning the language of consequence. Lantern light gilded their faces with equal parts regret and possibility. The final lantern drifted out of sight, its ember winking like a distant star. Overhead, the limestone statue gleamed under floodlights, its lifted hand eternally making room for brighter skies. Amira pressed the brass key against her pulse and whispered to the night, "Legacy is love in durable form." She felt Mina's small fingers tighten in her hair, as if answering, "Yes, and tomorrow already listens." 1 year later, a second shelter, Salma House, broke ground in a coastal town 300 miles away, funded mostly by microdonations from strangers who once typed #Lionhearted beneath a 30-second video clip. Under a blazing noon sun, Amira watched new volunteers erect scaffolding while Mina toddled among piles of bricks chanting "Doi, Doi, Doi," with childish delight. Jade approached, holding a fresh letter from a rehabilitation center upstate. Zion wrote monthly now, describing group therapy sessions and the library he organized for fellow residents. Amira tucked the envelope into her satchel with others, then turned toward the rising frame of Salma House. She inhaled dust and sea wind, the scent of beginnings, and stepped forward, already searching for the next place where a locked gate waited to become a welcome door. When a woman chooses purpose over pain and healing over hate, she builds more than a legacy. She builds light for others to walk through. And so the light kept spreading, brick by brick, story by story, name by name.
Please don't forget to subscribe, like, comment your thoughts and share our channel with your friends. See you in the next story. From your favorite stories.